Hey guys, I'm Drago and I got given the most exciting opportunity. Maybe you know Mr. Hopp's Playhouse. It's this game where you play as a little child called Ruby and your toy Mr. Hopp comes to life and is chasing you down in your house. It's a really fun little indie game, really interesting. It's got multiple sequels to it as well that are really cool. And the dev is actually releasing an HD remake of the original game. And guess who got chosen to make the official artwork for it? Yippee! This was such an amazing opportunity. It was so fun. I'm so happy and excited that I got chosen to do this. I am so grateful to the dev. It's a massive honour. And today's video is the speed paint of me making that artwork. Before we start, I do just want to say, yes, I did miss an upload last week. If you saw the community post, you know why. Basically, I've decided to go back to uploading every 2 weeks rather than weekly. I just didn't have the time or energy to keep up weekly uploads, and art takes a long time. It's not giving me enough time to sort of make the art and make the video and do all the editing. So I did decide to put it back to every 2 weeks. Hopefully that means I have more time and I can make much better quality videos for all of you. I don't want to be rushing the videos out. It's mainly because I'd rather quality over quantity. But with that being said, if you do enjoy this video, maybe like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And let's go with the video. Now, I am so thankful the dev gave me this sort of rough image of what to do for the composition and stuff. So big props to them. It is such a massive help when your client actually gives you this sort of outline to work with in image form. Even if it's just like stick figures or a really, rough sketch, it's still such a big help. This was a little bit outside of my comfort zone. If you know me, you know I am absolutely awful at drawing humans. And I did speak to the dev about this before he gave me the commission. And we agreed that I would try the character, but if I felt like it wasn't good enough, then we'd do something that just kind of showed Mr. Hopp instead. However, we ended up keeping the human character. I think it didn't turn out too bad. But I did a lot of the construction lines, just sort of changing it and just sort of thinking about the poses. I mean, Ruby turned out to be a stick figure at the start. In the end, I actually zoomed it in a bit more just so that the sort of scaling made a bit more sense. And then I was so careful with sort of getting the shapes and stuff right for Ruby, who is the child. I did not want to disappoint. I was so sort of anxious doing this. So construction lines were so important on this one because where it was out of my comfort zone, I needed to make sure that I had that base of the shapes and I was understanding those shapes in order to get the sketch and then hence the rest of the art to look right. Mr. Hopp is obviously more within my comfort zone. I do love drawing a good sort of monster design. Initially, I wanted this pose where his shoulders were quite high up, his head was sort of hunched over. He had sort of one arm hanging limply and the other arm was around the corner, but I couldn't really get it to work. I think it was mainly the aspect ratio of the piece. Because this is going to be the Steam banner for the game, it had to be a certain size, which did sort of mess up the composition a little bit. Not mess it up, but it was just harder to pull it off, I think. So I had to go at a different idea with Mr. Hopp. I ended up making it so his shoulders weren't as hunched and that he had one arm up rather than hanging loosely. Onto the sketching, I started with Ruby. I'm glad I had such a clear reference and style to work off here, otherwise I would have been absolutely screwed. Thankfully, with it being a more cartoon style and the game having its own distinctive style to it, where I didn't have to go completely realistic, it did help a ton. And it was actually really fun replicating this style, because it's like I could replicate it but also add my own flair to it. And it was a lot of fun playing around with that. I played around with this sketch of her so much though. It took me a lot to get sort of happy with it. And even then I wasn't 100%. I tried to sort of try have it to make it look like the hair was a bit messy. You know when you have sort of thicker hair and you push it back, it all sort of strands will sort of stick up and stuff because she's got her back pressed against the wall. And I really wanted to exaggerate the fact that her back is pressed against the wall. She is hiding as well as she can. So I thought having the hair sort of stick up in areas would sort of show that. It's hard to explain, but yeah. In the end though, I decided to just leave her as it is and go on to Mr. Hopp. Before doing this piece, I'd already done some experiments of messing around with the style and how I would draw these two. So having more of an idea of Mr. Hopp, I went straight into him. It was a great help doing that, doing the experiments beforehand. I would highly recommend that if you have a character you need to draw and you're not entirely sure how to do it, before just diving straight into your main piece, just, open another canvas and just do some sketchy experiments. Mess around with the design and how it fits into your style. And then once you're at a comfortable place, you can then go into the main piece. And that's exactly what I did for Mr. Hopp here. I really wanted to exaggerate the creepy vibe, so I made sure to give him plenty of teeth, make them nice and pointy. I also decided to give him exposed gums, like he's really curling his lips up in this big smile he's got. It really gives sort of an uncanny creepy vibe, considering this is supposed to be a plushy toy. It shouldn't have gums, it shouldn't have teeth, it shouldn't have a tongue. And it just adds this whole uncanny vibe that why is this plush toy this monster? What is going on here, you know? Really adds a creepiness to it. I made the bow tie droop down because he's sort of leaning over. And while I made the torso extend to the bottom here right now, I did adjust that later on so that it was more going behind the wall. So it's more like he was leaning forward rather than just stepping out. The rest of what I did was pretty self-explanatory. He was so fun to draw, like, oh my god, this is the sort of thing that I love drawing. Are these creepy creatures that it seems like they're one way but they're actually another way, and you've got this really uncanny feeling to them. Absolutely love drawing characters like that. It's why I draw FNAF so often. After sending the sketch off to the dev and getting it all approved, I went onto the line art. Now, I made a lot of adjustments to Ruby as I did the line art. Parts of the sketch are left out, parts of it I added in. Mainly the nose I made smaller, a bit more dainty, and I made sure to sort of give the head a bit more shape to it, so you could see the sort of cheekbone and the jawline and the chin, rather than it just being this one round curving line, you know. The line art style I kept the same to what I usually do though. You know, the dev came to me saying they like my style, which is why they chose me to do it, and so I wasn't going to sit here and completely change up my style just because I'm doing something important, you know. They said they like my style, so that's what I'm sticking with. And that is also a massive compliment, and I'm like, oh my god. So it was using a sort of thinner brush, and then occasionally switching to a thicker brush in order to add the variation in the line weight. Areas that are going to be darker, lines that need to be more defined. That's why I tend to add the thicker, darker lines for the line weight variation. And line weight variation is just the best thing if you think your line art is looking flat. Just go in and add some thickness in places. It'll really, really help define your line art more, make it pop a bit more, and it will no longer look as flat. It is such an important thing to do. I highly recommend giving it a go. In fact, if you want, I could even make some videos on sort of tips and tricks with art and how to do them and stuff. So if you're interested in like little tutorials maybe, let me know down below in the comments. I can give that a go. I'm going to interject here. I didn't really say anything for the flat colour because what is there to say? But here is a really quick tip for how to do some nice detailed eyes really sort of quickly and simply. Start off with your iris, obviously, and then choose some tones based on the colour of the eye and just sort of put them in areas. Make sure you sort of got the darker hues either top or bottom and the lighter hues top or bottom, you know, don't mix them. Blend that in and then get a darker hue and sort of outline the edge of the eye with it roughly. And then do these little lines going in towards the centre of the eye but not all the way. And then you want to do the same thing with a lighter hue. And that is going to outline the pupil, and you do it roughly as well. You'll see here that it's not like just a smooth outline. I've done it roughly. I sort of scribbled it in. And then with the same hue on a really, really thin brush, really thin lines, just, you know, spread out these little lines going from the centre out to the edge. And there you go. You've got some simple eyes that look nice and detailed. It was then on to using my trusty watercolour brush. I feel like I need to praise this thing. I feel like I need to make merch of like the holy watercolour brush because I use it so often. But it was on to texturing with this brush. This is where I do a little bit of shading, but it's more in the sense of getting the shapes defined. So rather than the actual lighting of the piece, it's just showing the natural curves and shapes and contours of the characters. So say Ruby's cheeks and stuff like that. It's the part when it really gives the 3D look. Really helps to not make things look too flat. Let me tell you, I was trying so hard though. I was so nervous about doing this. I was constantly thinking, oh god, is it good enough? Is he gonna like it? Am I like, is this worth it? Is this gonna be worth his money? Hopefully I did enough to impress, I hope. I'm so nervous about this sort of thing that I really have the issue where I just don't like anything that I produce. All of my art, I hate it, honestly. It's a classic artist issue. I'm sure a lot of you get it. Oh, and it really hinders me sometimes and I just have to say, shut up brain, they like it, it's fine, you know? Anyways, the texture was actually quite a fun stage doing this one. It's been a long time since I've drawn a character that has hair or fur. I used to a lot back in the day with my OCs. I used to have, you know, the classic wolf OCs and all that. But nowadays, not so much. I more draw FNAF and other sort of monster creatures that don't really have this fur texture to them. So going back to doing that, you know, sort of going back to my roots, it was so much fun. You know, I was sort of sat thinking, oh, this fur's going to be so tedious to do. It's going to take me ages. There's so much to do. I actually found myself having a lot of fun doing it. Where you could just be really nice and rough and just flowing with your pen. You could just sort of go for it. It's such a fun process. I really enjoy it. It looked great on Ruby's hair and I think it looked even better on Mr. Hopp. Mr. Hopp, I did go for a slightly softer brush when I was doing his fur because he is a plush toy at heart. He's sort of going to have that softer fur to him for a child to want to hug. So I made it a thicker brush. I made it softer and I think it looks so great on him. With all the texturing done, the final stages was the shading and lighting. Since this is at night, I just ended up giving it the whole sort of darker layer over the top of it. Did a little bit of erasing where the lighter parts would be. And again, it was another part where I was thinking, right, I need to get this right, I really need to make this look good, this is going to bring the whole piece together. And I almost went in and did something differently to what I normally do. But then again, I was having to remember that when people commission you, they come to you because they like your style, they look at your work and they think, right, that is the style that I want, that is what I'm looking for this piece of art that I need. And I have to remember that they are looking for my style and not for me to do something different and therefore not make it like my style, you know? So eventually I sort of settled more into doing what I normally do. That was my usual method of a couple of overlay layers of rough shading of both dark and light, and then the more refined layers, which I'm using my line art brush for, just to add in the harsher shadows, the shadows that have got harder lines on them, the more exaggerated shadows and highlights. There are a couple of things I did differently. That was adding a base multiply layer over both of them just to make it a bit darker to fit in with the nighttime environment, and then using my softer eraser to just sort of erase where the light would really be hitting so that it wasn't too completely dark, because otherwise it would just look like this flat layer over the top and I need to still keep those 3D shapes. Also on both of them I did an extra layer of the refined shading. This was to further separate areas, so for example on the chin of Ruby, between where the neck and chin are, obviously the chin is further forward than where the neck is, so I added that extra layer of shading in order to really exaggerate the fact that the neck is behind the chin. So otherwise it just sort of looked connected and it was too flat. So just adding that extra layer helps exaggerate things like that, and it just helps a viewer understand the depth of things a bit better. Again, if you guys want a video where I give tips and tricks, just let me know, I'll be happy to do one. The final stage was just adding a few effects. This was a vignette around the edge just to sort of bring the whole piece together. I sort of put a lighter layer over the top just to add a bit of light because there obviously is a light source coming in somewhere. Added a vignette around the edge just to give it a bit more of exaggeration to the character in the middle. I added some dust particles in the air, and then it was giving Mr. Hopp a shine on his eyes. I gave it a bit of a lens flare, which is just a stock image that I have saved because I tried to do it manually and it looked awful. And then once I sort of gave him that glow, it was just adding the shading to really exaggerate that glow bouncing off the surfaces. So I added that glow to, say, the edge of the wall and around Mr. Hopp's eye sockets and on his muzzle, and sort of reflecting a little bit off of Ruby as well on her cheeks and nose on that side of her face and on that part of her hair as well. And here we have it. This is my finished artwork for the official Steam banner of Mr. Hopp's Playhouse HD remake. I cannot put into words how honoured I am that I was chosen to do this. I remember watching 8-Bit Ryan play Mr. Hopp's Playhouse and absolutely loving the game. And to have the dev come to me saying that they specifically like my style and want that for their artwork for the game, it's just absolutely amazing and I cannot thank them enough. So absolutely massive thanks to Moonbit Gaming for choosing me to do this. It was so much fun and I'm so honoured to do it. Like, I honestly can't say that enough. Mr. Hopp's Playhouse HD will be releasing soon on Steam, so follow Moonbit Games on Twitter for more information on the release. Highly recommend going and checking the game out. It's going to be absolutely awesome. With all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, maybe leave a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye!